Most people think triumph means speaking louder, arguing better, or winning debates. But what if the real power lies in silence? In 1997, Steve Jobs returned to Apple. The boardroom was tense. Journalists questioned him harshly, even ridiculed him. One asked, "What have you actually been doing since you left Apple?" Jobs paused. He didn't react, didn't defend, he simply waited. That moment of composed silence flipped the room. The power dynamic shifted. The crowd began to listen to silence. Controlled and deliberate has power. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this deeply. In his writings, he never directly told people what to do. He revealed truths that left them unsettled without raising his voice once. Have you ever stopped, dead in your tracks, and asked yourself, why do you need to respond? Why do you have to explain? Why do you burn to prove something? Every damn time. We're drowning in noise. Everybody talks, everybody shouts, everybody's desperate to be heard, but no one, not a single soul, wants to listen. Worse, they can't stand silence. Silence is unbearable. It strips you down. It shows you what's underneath and gives you no way out. Now tell me, how many times have you blurted something out, only to wish you hadn't? How many times have you opened your mouth and handed someone else the power? How many times has your need to speak put you in a corner, defenseless? That's no accident. That's no flaw. That's conditioning. They told you talking means strength, that silence is surrender, that staying quiet means you're scared. They lied to you. One of the most dangerous minds in all of history. He saw it differently. To him, real power wasn't in the mouth. It was in the mind, in restraint, in the kind of silence that stares straight through you. Because silence, when used with intent, isn't peace. It's a weapon, one of the deadliest. He said, the will to power, that primal force pushing every human forward. It doesn't scream, it doesn't flail, it doesn't need an audience. It stands calm, unshaken, while the world burns, everyone else flailing in their own noise. But the master, he waits, he watches, he calculates, and when he does speak, the world falls silent. This isn't just about Nietzsche. This is about you. What you've been refusing to face, the war you're waging inside every time you're left alone with your thoughts. The terror you feel when you're quiet. The truth, your need to speak, to be seen, to be validated, might be the very thing making you weak, dependent, easily controlled. Yeah, this won't be easy to hear, but it needs to be said. So I dare you, stay with me, all the way to the end. Don't break it, don't interrupt that silence that's starting to rise inside you. Let it grow. Let it stretch its arms around your chest, because what you're about to hear, you might not want it. But make no mistake, it's exactly what you need. Nietzsche wasn't your average thinker. He didn't write for applause. He didn't care to be liked or even understood. He wrote like a man throwing knives, not to kill, but to wake you up. And one of the sharpest blades he ever threw, the will to power. Most people, they hear that phrase and picture domination, control, stepping on others. That's the mistake. That's the surface-level nonsense. Nietzsche was after something far deeper. The ultimate power isn't over others, it's over yourself. True strength, the kind that can't be stolen, bought, or faked, is the strength not to react. Yeah, not to react. Today's world worships the fast mover, the instant reply, the sharp comeback, the constant alertness. But Nietzsche knew that's not power. That's slavery. Slavery to your impulses, to your need for approval, to your fear of being misunderstood, to your desperate hunger to be seen. The real overman, the Übermensch, he's not twitching at every word. He doesn't take the bait. He doesn't need to explain because he's past it. Past the ego, past the vanity. He's enough, just as he is. See, when you react on impulse, you're not winning. You're waving the white flag. You're handing the other person the key to your emotions. You're telling them, you get to pull my strings, you get to provoke me, you get to own a piece of my mind. And Nietzsche, he saw it for what it is. Reacting is revealing. It lays bare your wounds, your triggers, your deepest insecurities. But silence, that's a shield. Not the kind you hide behind, the kind you stand behind, unshaken, solid, a silence that holds weight, presence, command. Because true power isn't loud, it isn't fast, it's controlled, it's internal. So you want power, real power, then listen, learn to hold, learn to watch chaos without being pulled under by it, because while they waste themselves chasing battles that never had to be fought, you sit still and grow sharper. You build in the quiet because it's right there, in that place of tension, of pressure, of containment, where impulse is caged. That's where real power is born. But here's the problem. Why is it so damn hard to stay silent? Why does stillness feel like suffocation? Why does noise seduce us, even when it's the very thing destroying us? Next, we're going straight into the roots. Psychological roots. We're going to tear open the mask and see exactly what noise is trying to cover up. But if this truth you're hearing, if it's cutting through the surface, hit that subscribe button. It means something. Now let's go deeper. Ever notice how silence makes people squirm? How just one long pause in a conversation can light a fire of discomfort? How being alone in a quiet room with nothing but your own thoughts can feel like hell? That's no accident, that's not coincidence. Silence has teeth. It strips you bare, and human beings are terrified of what might be seen when the volume drops to zero, because when the noise dies, there's no distraction, no shield, no music, no scrolling, no small talk, just you and what you've buried, what you're terrified to meet, your shame, your doubt, your guilt, your weak spots. Noise is the rug, and every word you spew just helps shove the mess deeper underneath it. Talking too much, reacting without pause, staying busy every second of the day. It's anesthesia. And you don't even know you've been numbing yourself. Modern psychology backs this up. Our minds are trained, conditioned to run, to flee from emotional discomfort. So we fill the silence. We fill it with chatter, with distraction, with noise. Because the moment it's quiet, we hear the abyss. Carl Jung nailed it when he said, "What you resist persists." And what do we resist the most? Facing that void, that aching hollowness inside. Nietzsche saw it coming. He knew. This modern disease we carry, it's not too much pain, it's distraction. That's the real disease, not pain, not failure, distraction. From being lost in cheap opinions, in hollow debates, in ego duels that do nothing but feed a fragile identity. But silence, real silence, it slices straight through that illusion. No more masks, no more noise to hide behind. Just you, raw, unfiltered, uncomfortable. That's why silence rooted in awareness is terrifying and powerful, because it demands courage. Being silent, it ain't passive. It's resistance, it's rebellion against a world that told you your value is in your words instead of your being. Silence breaks that cycle. It crashes the social game. It gives you back the reins. You become sovereign again, but don't get it twisted. Silence by itself isn't enough. It has to be aimed, directed, sharpened like a blade. In the next part, you're gonna see it. Not just silence, but tactical silence. Weaponized, not to attack, but to dominate. Let's make something clear. What separates a silent fool from a silent master? Intention. One shuts up from fear, the other from control. And this is one of the harshest truths about power. If you can't master your own silence, you'll never master anything. Nietzsche didn't see silence as running away. For him, silence was sovereignty. It wasn't retreat. It was ascension. The overman's silence, it ain't shy. It's not passive. It's not scared. It's strategic. It's surgical. He doesn't go quiet to surrender. He goes quiet because he already knows. The louder someone talks, the cheaper they're selling themselves. And those who react too fast, they hand over their emotional blueprint to the enemy. They make themselves predictable, vulnerable, exposed. Let's be brutally honest. In a real confrontation, the one who talks the most is losing. Too much explaining, too much justifying, too much showing. Silence used with precision becomes a mirror, and guess what happens? The other starts to speak for you. They project, they unravel, they spill their own weaknesses, trying to fill the space you left empty on purpose. Have you ever met a leader who never raises their voice, but owns every inch of the room? Have you ever stood in front of someone who, with one pause, one unbroken stare, made you second-guess everything you were about to say? That's strategic silence. It builds tension, and tension is power's home turf. You don't need a mountain of arguments when you own the timing, when you command the rhythm, when you decide when to speak, and more importantly, when to not. In social psychology, there's a term for this: nonverbal status communication. Those who own the room speak less, pause longer, weigh every word like it's gold, because it is. They don't argue, they unravel others. And this isn't luck, it's a skill. And Nietzsche, he knew it without ever naming it. Silence is not absence, it's amplified presence. But for silence to strike like lightning, you need a foundation. You need a place where silence isn't hollow. It's dense, weighted, full, and that only comes from one source: conscious solitude. In the next part, we go deeper. We'll expose why solitude isn't the downfall of the strong. It's their birthplace. It's where the transformation begins. Because silence only becomes invincible when it rises from a place within that no one else can touch. Most people fear solitude like a prison sentence. So they run, they numb, they stuff every moment with stimulation. Most people can't stand to be alone. They stuff every empty space with company, every silence with noise. Because true solitude, it forces you to look in the mirror. No filters, no distractions, just you. And that is unbearable for many, but Nietzsche, he saw solitude through a different lens, not as exile, but as elevation, not punishment, but privilege. He believed that solitude is sacred, a sanctuary, a place where the spirit doesn't just survive. It sharpens, where your individuality stops being a rough sketch and starts becoming a masterpiece. He who cannot endure solitude, Nietzsche said, does not love freedom. And that line cuts deep. Because everyone claims to want freedom, but no one wants what freedom demands: the ability to exist without applause, to walk alone without needing an audience, to be whole in the absence of witnesses. That kind of silence, the one born from voluntary solitude, it isn't empty, it's alchemical. It transforms you. In that quiet space, you finally hear something that the noise of life buried. Yourself, your voice, your fears, your cravings, your broken pieces, all rising to the surface. Everything routine smothered, everything society told you to ignore, everything you tried to avoid. Solitude is the lab where your real self is forged. No more roles, no more performances, just truth. Nietzsche believed that the superior spirit reveals itself in isolation. Because isolation doesn't break it, it unleashes it. The average man runs from loneliness because it confronts him with his inner chaos. But the strong man seeks it because he knows only in chaos can you carve out inner order. And here's the key, that strategic silence we talked about earlier, it only gains its real power when it grows from this solitude, because it's no longer just a technique. It's not a trick to seem powerful. It's a byproduct of victory, a signal that you've already won. Within, there's no desperation anymore, no need to be heard, no urge to be understood. Silence now isn't a shield, it's your aura, but it goes even deeper. Silence, when born from conscious solitude, doesn't just protect. It heals, it cleans, it burns away the fake. It reveals what's been buried. Silence doesn't just defend, it dismantles, it makes noise die from exhaustion. But there's a moment, a point of transformation, where silence becomes something else entirely. It becomes a language, a message more thunderous than any shout, a scream without sound. And when it's used well, no speech can rival it, because when silence fills a room with absolute presence, like an invisible giant, it suffocates the superficial. It tears off masks. It silences ego. And in that space, nothing else needs to be said, because while words can be challenged, true silence is untouchable. Nietzsche understood this with brutal clarity. He knew, sometimes not saying anything says everything. A well-placed silence can hit harder than any insult. It can be a rejection, a judgment, a final verdict. When you choose not to respond, you're not staying neutral. You're declaring with brutal elegance, "You don't deserve my energy." That's not arrogance, it's sovereignty. In a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, those who choose silence rise. They don't compete, they dominate. And this is the paradox. By saying less, you say more. Strategic silence isn't weakness, it's psychological power in its sharpest form. Picture a heated debate. Tensions are rising, insults are flying, and one person just stops speaking. They remain still, calm, silent. What happens? The other starts scrambling. They poke, they provoke, they push harder, because your silence unsettles them. Why? Because it reveals something they fear most. You are at peace and serenity, and in the face of aggression is terrifying. It's a mirror. It reflects their chaos, their insecurity, their lack of control. But be warned, this isn't about silence out of fear. It's not avoidance, it's precision. You remain silent because you could destroy them, and choose not to, because you've already won. The battle ended before they even knew it began. To the shallow eye, it looks like nothing, but to the one who tried to hurt you, it feels like everything, because silence also does something else. It amplifies. Say one word after a long silence and it hits like a bullet, not because it's loud, but because of the space around it, the tension, the focus, the expectation. Nietzsche said, words are merely symbols for relationships of things to each other and to us. But silence is the symbol of the unreachable. It is what lies beyond words, beyond justification, beyond noise. It belongs to those who no longer need to explain, who have outgrown the need to prove anything. And there's a final stage, the highest evolution of this power. When silence stops being a tactic and becomes your identity, not hiding, not hesitating, but existing beyond the noise. That's when you've crossed into Nietzsche's idea of true strength. The power that isn't shown, it's felt. So now we arrive at the final question, the hardest one, the one most people avoid their entire lives. Are you ready for that kind of silence? Because this path is not for everyone. Silence demands inner solidity. a stillness that cannot be shaken by praise or insult, because staying quiet while the world screams is not passivity. It is war, a war against the ego, against your craving for approval, against the impulse to react to every threat, every comment, every jab. And that's why most people fail. They talk too much, they explain too much, they reveal too much. Why? Because they're trying to prove a worth they haven't yet found inside themselves. Nietzsche understood this. He knew. Those who constantly explain have already lost. Those who defend everything are still not at peace with anything. True power. It's silent because it doesn't need to become. It already is. It doesn't beg, it doesn't rush, it doesn't convince. And when you reach that place, when silence isn't something you perform but something you are, people notice, they listen differently, they look at you differently, they feel your presence without you needing to say a single word. This isn't mysticism, it's not poetry. It's psychology. It's energy. It's mastery, but make no mistake. This path is lonely, it asks everything of you. You'll swim against the current of urgency, of performance, of constant noise, and you'll sit alone in what feels like emptiness until you realize that emptiness was full of you the entire time. And that is when everything changes, and then something shifts. You stop reacting impulsively and start acting with intention. You speak less, but when you do, you change the room. You no longer chase to be heard. Because now, you know, those with something real to say don't need to chase an audience. The right people will always listen. So now ask yourself, will you keep getting lost in the noise? Or will you finally learn to use silence as a weapon? Will you keep giving your power away to anyone who provokes you? Or will you take back control of your own mind? This isn't just about stillness, it's about transformation, and it starts with a decision. If something in this video challenged you, if it made you confront yourself, then prove it. Comment below, I choose silence. Just that. No explanation, no justification. Those who understand will know, and those who don't matter. Because if you've made it this far, you already feel it. Your transformation is beginning. But don't stop here. The next video isn't just more content, it's your next step. More important than you realize, because your evolution doesn't wait. And the world needs your strength, not in noise, not in force, but in silence.